did he get food or anything like that?
I don't recall him having anything in his hand when he returned back from the counter, other than the cell phone that came out of his pocket of his shirt.
So then are you saying that he just walked up the aisle alongside of her?
It was, it was like he went up there on purpose, knowing that the parents weren't there, and knew what he was going to be doing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He had no intentions other than what he was doing.
The court also asked you if there was a birthday party or anything like that going on. Would you say at the time prior to your altercation with the defendant, prior to that time, how would you characterize the noise level in the restaurant?
I would say mild. There wasn't teenage kids in there after a basketball game. Okay. I mean, it was a normal
before
3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon time.
Okay.
Some chatting, some talking, but wasn't very loud.
Okay. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Lote. You have two things going on right now. First, you have a chance to cross-examine the witness, and you also have a chance to ask questions to follow up on the questioning that I did. Since they both seem to fall concurrent with each other, it's your turn.
Thank you. Are you an electronics expert?
No, I am not.
What is your education, work experience in electronic field?
Electronic field as in what?
Well, you state that you know for a fact that I'm recording with my cell phone.
I have a cell phone. I own a cell phone.
I do not own any cell phones that have audio video capabilities. Zero. And I haven't owned a camera
Objection, Your Honor.
or
I mean,
a cell phone with any type of capabilities.
All right. Mr. Lote, this is a time for you to ask questions of Mr. Calderon in cross-examination. Now, remember I said that there's a division of labor and a time and a place for things? You will have an opportunity to say what you just said on the record if you choose to testify. You're certainly free to ask this gentleman if he knows whether you own any phones or what type of phones. I mean, that's a valid question, but you can't debate with him back and forth. With that in mind, you can rephrase your question.
Can you identify the phone?
As I can identify it as a smartphone, not a flip phone. Most smartphones are flat, open cased.
A smartphone.
Yep.
And you know for a fact it was recording.
Yep.
How far away were you when you were observing this?
15 to 20 feet.
And you observed me recording a girl? And
yes, I did.
You could tell from where you were that I was absolutely recording this little girl.
You were very much so.
Did you state to me, give me your wallet?
And I never stated anything about a wallet.
Did you state, give me your money?
No, I did not.
Did you state, I'm going to kick your ass?
Yes, I did.
Did you swear at me?
Yes, I did.
Did you confront me?
Yes, I did.
Do you make it a habit of going up to people and try to steal their property?
No, I don't.
Objection.
Do you make it a habit of threatening people?
No, I don't.
Do you understand that people walk around with electronics every day in their hands?
Yes, I do.
You stated that you observed me walking slowly past this girl and angling my camera in order to take a picture, and that you were able to see a reflection from this screen on the window behind me?
No. I saw the store windows on your cell phone and the little girl,
And you were how far away at that time?
15 to 20 feet away,
How large was the screen?
about that big.
You're indicating about roughly 4 inches?
Yeah, 4 or 5 inch cell phone, typical smartphone.
And your testimony...
I have my phone over there in a chair if you wanted to see one.
In your testimony, so that I understand it, because I have to be clear, is that on the screen on Mr. Lote's cell phone, smartphone, as you testified, you saw the same child that you saw sitting in the restaurant?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Lote?
Can you identify this object?
That is not the phone that was used.
Can you identify this object?
That was not, yes, I can identify it, but that is not the phone that was used.
You can identify this?
That's a phone.
Just for the record, it's not a phone. I question Mr. Calderon's ability to identify
Would you bring
electronics.
that up to the bench, please?
Pardon?
Would you bring that phone up to the bench, or that object that you said is not a phone, to the bench, please?
Might I approach Your Honor?
You certainly may. I anticipate that you will. My guess to me is that this looks like a portable MP3 player.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Eclipse portable media player, TCH428. To me, it kind of looks like about the size of a flip phone, but smaller than a smartphone. Okay, thank you, me. I just wanted to do that for record. Thank you for your cooperation there.
Can you identify this object?
Looks like some kind of phone.
No, it is not.
It's an electronic. I don't know what it is, but it has a screen on it.
I'm trying to determine what you saw.
I know what I saw.
Nobody else does.
I saw a phone or a recording device that you were using to do with whatever you wanted to do with it.
Actually, unless you have the actual phone that you had on that date, Mr. Lote, I think you actually made your point in the evidence in terms of the cross-examination of the witness, so you can move on.
Well, it's not a phone, and I did show him the object that I have.
We noted that and entered that in the record.
He
That's
just
why we
can't
had you
identify
approach.
it.
Right, we had, and you can argue that later. We actually did take note of that, and I did put into the record what that object was.
And the capabilities of that object?
You can certainly talk about that, because if you want to get to that, you know, the court can take judicial notice, because I have 2 iPods that, you know, that some of them are almost identical to iPhones, and they both have recording capability, even though one's not a phone. So at some point, you know, you may wind up into a circular argument that goes back to the beginning of, you know, which came first, the chicken or the egg type of thing. So I'll allow you to pursue that a little bit if you want, but, you know, be prepared that you might get the answer that you don't want to hear. Go ahead.
Well, to establish the capabilities of the object that he saw and whether or not he's even being able to have the ability to see this object from 30 feet away is questionable. Given the size of the screen and the capabilities 30 feet away from a reflection on a glass window from at least 30 feet away, and then clearly stating that he can define what's on that side of that screen from 30 feet away being reflected from a mirror or some type of...
I got you. That's legitimate cross-examination and a statement to make. The only problem is having a proper foundation for that. Let me do one thing. Was there any property such as, contemporaneous to this event, Ms. Iceland, did the police or anyone else seize as evidence or otherwise acquire Mr. Lote's cell phone?
I think the detective could answer that question for the court, but it's my understanding that no photo was located, if that's...
No phone was located?
No photo.
Well, he can testify later. I was just asking you as an officer of the court, because that dovetails a bit with what Mr. Lote is testifying to. If we have that piece of evidence, certainly he might, since he's pro se, he might want to have that piece of evidence to use. So that was a question that I have. Do we have his phone?
I know it's at some point in time there were electronic devices that were removed by a search warrant from the defendant's home, but I don't know if the cell phone was one of those.
You can confer with your officer if you wish. Go ahead.
That he doesn't believe that there was any smartphone seized.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Lote, you may continue.
Thank you.
But I'm sorry, but where I was coming from for that is if they had the actual phone in evidence, you know, that certainly, that was one of the things that you might be able to pull out and say, do you recognize this?
I actually do have the phones that they have taken. And if you'd like me to, I'll go through the ones that they took from me, and we'll go through them.
Well, do you recall the date that occurred? That they were taken?
What? The date that I was...
The date that the phones were taken.
Yes, that was June 11, 2014.
All right. And the court would not receive evidence in that because it would be too remote in time unless there was some evidence to establish that it was exactly the same phone. You're certainly free to pursue that way, but the weight that would be given to the evidence certainly would be different if it's something that the police had seized contemporaneous to the event. But go ahead.
They did seize my cell phones.
But not on February 4th?
No, June 11th.
That's 4 months later.
That's correct.
All right. But feel free to attempt to make your record if you wish, and if
Sure.
it goes too far afield, we'll talk about that. But you're certainly allowed to make your point,
Yes,
you
sir.
know, for whatever value it may have.
Thank you. Can you identify this object?
Some kind of record.